Montreal, 8:30 p.m. The autumn rain glides down your office window as your fingers fly over your keyboard. You're sitting comfortably in an old leather chair that dates back to the Prohibition, which you earned as a bonus following one of your latest negotiations. As you type out one last email, you sip on a glass of blood, savoring the taste. Once you've sent the email, you turn off your laptop and read over the latest letter you received from the Prince of Montreal.
Mr. Armstrong, tonight you will receive a visit from two important members of our shared community. Regrettably, their argument could jeopardize the fragile allegiance I have taken so long to build. Their trivial territorial feud must not degenerate into something bigger. I've been told of your diplomatic skills on multiple occasions. It's time for you to prove that accepting a member of the Vancouver lineage into my domain was a good decision. Failure is not an option. Martin Hilkers.
You slide the letter into the shredder. Its blades are still working when your intern announces your clients have arrived. After politely thanking her and giving her the night off, you welcome your guests and gesture for them to come in. As the vampires make their way into the room, you indicate to them their respective seats. The skinnier of the two sits. You cough into your right fist to get their attention.
Gentlemen, I am Samuel Armstrong, descendant of Siegfried, Prince of Vancouver. I've asked you here today to shed light on an embarrassing occurrence. I invite you to start from the very beginning and recall the incident as each of you sees it.
Thomas Chartrand, a Brujah who looks like a lumberjack, has chosen to remain standing. Instead, he points to Antonio Andrade, a thin Malkavian wearing a gray suit.
It's simple. This bastard was out hunting when he trespassed on my territory without authorization. I'm ready to forget about it all, if he apologizes. Otherwise, I'll tear his fangs off. We clear?
Leaning back in his comfortable armchair and keeping his cool, the Malkavian retorts,
"This is a simple misunderstanding, a mere faux pas. I was chasing after prey on private property when things degenerated and turned violent. Nothing in Camarilla law explicitly forbids such a hunt. Therefore..."
Unable to wait any longer, the Brujah stomps toward the Malkavian, who immediately stands up, fists raised.
Are you fucking serious? I'm gonna beat your ass!
You place yourself between the two of them. You place yourself between the Brujah and the Malkavian. But then you hesitate. Should you start by reasoning with the easily riled-up Brujah? Or should you begin discussions with the Malkavian, whose mannerisms are closer to your own? Unsure where to begin, you choose to start conversing with both. This most certainly won't be easy, but you'll have to find some common ground for the two of them to settle on. The prince will not tolerate failure. The tension between the two vampires is already quite strong. By placing yourself between them and trying to steer the conversation a certain way, you should be able to remain in control of the situation.
Gentlemen, let's not fall into some trivial quibble. It seems to me it would be wiser for us to get to know one another before beginning. That way, we'll be sure to find a resolution that satisfies both parties.
Both vampires get a hold of themselves and return to their seats, which are right next to yours. This might be harder than you first thought. You'll have to take the time to uncover their motivations and their weaknesses if you truly want to honor your lineage.
Now let's get started, shall we?
After what seems like an endless minute of silence, you choose to guide the conversation in a certain direction in order to better break into their minds and manipulate them. You try to slide into their minds as subtly as possible in order to guide them toward your objective.
We're faced with a problem that could have drastic political consequences. I invite you each to explain in turn how this has personally affected you. It stands to reason that although the laws and the traditions are pillars that cannot bend, our interpretations of them remain unique. The same can be said of our personal circumstances, of course.
You try to be as diplomatic as possible.
I don't believe violence to be the answer. In fact, I firmly believe everything can be solved through calm, rational discourse. Wouldn't you agree?
Some asshole comes to my place and shits on my lawn, but we're supposed to live happily ever after. You want to know how I see things? Well, here it is. This is my fucking domain, and that's that.
And that is exactly why we must discuss the matter calmly and rationally. The prince might not take too kindly to the alliance between our two sects being jeopardized by a mere physical brawl.
In only a few minutes' worth of discussion, you've regained control of the situation. You notice Mr. Andrade seems quite amused by the whole ordeal, however, to the point that you're starting to wonder if he's not testing the prince's power on purpose. Although you shouldn't underestimate the Brujah's intellect, the Malkavian strikes you as the more dangerous of the two. You proceed with caution. You pour a glass of warm blood to each of your guests.
This meeting is quite astounding. I'd like to think we could make for staunch allies, Mr. Andrade. I mean, no offense to your associates, Mr. Chartrand, but I doubt the Anarchs would appreciate me. Between us members of the Camarilla, however, I see great potential in helping each other, Mr. Andrade, wouldn't you agree?
Hopefully, you can get the Malkavian in your political clutches. A slight smile paints itself on the lips of Antonio Andrade. Could this mean victory? Thomas Chartrand is also grinning somewhat, although his grin looks more like a smirk.
Should I get you two a room?
You don't let his boorish behavior intimidate you and calmly respond.
Mr. Chartrand, don't forget you're also more than welcome to join the Camarilla whenever.
Join your cult? I'd rather die.
He spits on the floor. The Brujah stubbornly clings to his narrow-minded views. The Malkavian, however, seems quite content.
Gentlemen, I'm glad we've managed to come to some sort of understanding. I'd like to believe tonight's discussion will lead to a satisfactory outcome for all of us.
You've tried your best to arbitrate between the two. It's time to put an end to the mission the prince has given you. Decide whether you want to preserve this alliance, or whether you wish to benefit personally from this situation, something that could anger one of the two vampires. You choose to preserve the peace by staying neutral. You try to preserve the peace.
We can all concur that what matters is keeping the peace between our two communities in order to protect Montreal from outside harm. We must fight together, and the best way to do that is to move past this incident and pretend it never happened. I've heard a rumor of a possible Sabbat presence in the city. Let's focus on that instead of being turned into the laughingstock of the next Elysium for arguing over such trivial matters.
The time has come to impose your verdict. The Brujah and the Malkavian have just left your office. You've managed to preserve absolute neutrality. In other words, you've saved Montreal from a potential war between the Anarchs and the Camarilla. The prince, who is almost never available for anything, is unlikely to give you so much as a thank you gift, but at least you've accomplished your mission, which is, in the end, exactly what you were told to do. He'll probably ask for your help again, however, and that's a good start when it comes to establishing your new reputation in Montreal. Now it's time to think about going hunting. You won't have time to do so tomorrow, as you've been summoned to an emergency Elysium, probably to discuss the shady circumstances behind the disappearance of a group of artists. It's been a long time since similar events have occurred. Samuel Armstrong, backstory. Samuel Armstrong is a direct descendant from the Prince of Vancouver. Before his transformation, he was a wealthy attorney, a profession that he keeps practicing hiding his true nature. Samuel sees Montreal as a chance to increase his dignitas and move there from Vancouver by his own will. He is now working as a mediator at the court of Martin Hilkers. To Samuel's disappointment, he realized after several years that the prince is not doing a great job managing his domain. Samuel does not want to be associated with Hilkers and has started to show the community how a true Ventrue is doing business. He actively fixes Hilkers' leadership mistakes and uses his knights to extinguish metaphorical fires all over the city. His tireless efforts made Samuel the main contact to resolve any problems, sometimes even before an Elysium is convened. He knows he walks a tightrope, but he's not willing to risk the reputation of his entire bloodline when an incompetent newcomer is tarnishing it. Thanks to his diplomatic skills and his natural leadership, even the Anarchs must admit that he is not like other Ventrue. Conclusion. The air tonight is electrifying. A storm is brewing. The sheet of paper burning in your glass sporadically illuminates your face. Standing in front of your office's giant glass window, you watch over downtown Montreal. Memories of these past few days more eventful moments come back to you. It seems that after departing your office, Thomas Chartrand felt the need to take out his anger on a couple of fellows who were hanging around his place. Luckily for you, this occurred on Anarch territory. Those chaotic vampires have no respect for anything, excluding the Masquerade, at least. Despite this, you know full well that if the knowledge of this event has made its way to your ears, it will most definitely resurface elsewhere, and will likely tarnish your family's reputation. This status quo the Camarilla has reached with the Anarchs is exasperating, but the Prince's orders must be respected. The flame in the glass dies, reminding you of the incinerated letter's contents, which summoned you to an emergency Elysium tomorrow night. It's been a long time since events like this have occurred. The first raindrops strike the glass pane before you and slowly trickle down its surface. You watch over the city as the rain grows heavier, then decide to go hunting for prey. Tomorrow night will be much too eventful for you to think about quenching your thirst.